happens if every individual in this room begins to unleash more of their potential? What are your individual goals? What are your values? What excites you? I had a coach one time when I was with the Jets. Coach looked at me and says, hey, number 18. I said, yes, coach. He says, you got a whole lot of potential. And I was like, thank you, coach, thank you. First nice thing you said to me since I've been in camp. He said, don't thank me. It just means you haven't done anything yet. I will say it right now. There is a leader in here working with someone on your team. That individual on your team may be your top performer, but they are not maximizing their potential. Too often we allow being good to get in the way of being great. I'm not saying I would have the same conversation if 140,000 people were here, but when I'm talking to the 3,000 who influenced 140,000, you must understand, you cannot inspire and empower without being inspired and empowered yourself. The scoreboard is a lagging indicator. It is not a leading indicator. And what happens too often is we have a tendency to underestimate our potential and overestimate our actual performance. Now, I will be honest with you. It is hard as a leader, as a coach, to ask for something that you're not doing yourself. It is hard to ask for something that you're not practicing. It is hard to ask for something that you are not practicing. So the first filter, the first criteria before I ask for anything in terms of growth from my people, am I growing myself? What am I doing to get better? What am I doing to stretch myself? What am I doing to unleash more of the potential that I have? I'm telling you, this is next level. None of you would be in the seat you're in if you didn't have goals. The question is, why did you stop? When did you stop? In my relationships, in my marriage, in my business, in all the areas of my life, if it's atrophied or if it's hit a rut, there's a high probability that I stop goal setting in it, that I stop dreaming. They had a room this size of all their top salespeople. And I asked the question, who in the room knows who around the top 10 salespeople are? At least, 5 of the top 10. Almost every hand in the room went up. My next question was, how many of you would desire to be in that group? Almost every hand up. Then I asked the last question. How many of you have called them? How many of you have taken the time to go visit them? How many of you have? I swear maybe 20 hands went up. I said, this is good news. Those 20 hands, you're on your way. Because for some reason, everybody else who knows what works, people who are willing to share it, won't go have the conversation. You know what it reminds me of during my playing days? My number was 18. One of my best friends was Eddie Carter, number 81. What did Eddie and I have in common? We were on the bench, watching every single game. If you looked at the film, you would see 1,881 or 8,118. And what were we doing together? Complaining about why we weren't on the field. Talking about it, fighting it. Have you noticed complainers fight each other? It's amazing how it works. I mean, we make each other comfortable in the fact that we're all performing far beneath our potential. That's how it works. Why? Because I know I should be honoring him and finding out what he does, but I'd rather talk about him from over here, give reasons why he plays. Oh, yeah, well, I would be able to play too if I was over there. If I knew him back then, like my coach doesn't want to win, right? So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, it would be a better idea that I also spend some time and encourage each other. Can we find the ones who are doing it right? It's free information. They've paid a tuition that I don't have to. I can learn from them. Do you know how many times I've ran around the wedge? I've walked down my hallway knowing good and well I should walk directly into my teenage daughter's room, but I make a left instead. I can't tell you how many times I should have the conversation with my wife, but instead of having it, I run around the wedge and I use that strategy called hope. I hope things just get better on their own. Don't have to confront it. I can't tell you how many times, instead of having a performance management conversation with those I lead, I just run around the wedge hoping things are just going to get better. We're going to have these conversations over here about something. Instead of directly dealing with it, I'm going to talk around it. I can't tell you how many times I've talked around the I ran around the wedge, having my whole team together, and I make it a team conversation, knowing instead of just dealing with that one person who the problem really is with. This is the kind of stuff I've done. Come to discover, my coach was right. I have ran around the wedge so many times, and the price of running around the wedge is never just I stayed safe. No, but the team lost. So my question to you today, not a question, but my challenge to you, because every single leader, greatness is in every one of us. And we're at our best when we run through wedges, not when we run around them. So what wedge do you need to run through? Because it's worth it. My fear can only be conquered by something I love more. My love for my daughter has to be greater than my fear of being rejected. My love for my wife has to be greater than my fear of confrontation. My love for my team and the difference we want to make in the world has to be bigger than my fear of being uncomfortable. Many times you can measure leaders' success by the number of uncomfortable conversations they're willing to have.
I don't just like keynoting, I love keynoting. I love the engagement with the audience. I love communicating a message, and not only communicating a message, but looking at the people and seeing that they can picture what I'm talking about. They don't just hear it. They can see it in their own minds. I spend a lot of time executive coaching, a lot of time in boardrooms, a lot of time doing cultural transformation and consulting assignments. Therefore, I can step on stage and keynote about things I actually experience. So it's just not great quotes and great this. I get a chance to see what these principles look like implemented because I get to be part of the implementation. So that's what I love. Sometimes it's fun to just be on a stage and inspire and connect. But then I also get the benefit of doing the real work that comes with taking that message and really getting it embedded. And I think that's what also allows me to enjoy what I'm keynoting because I know what I'm talking about actually works.
I was in Florida. I had a gentleman who was leading an organization. He says, Eric, tell my people, let them know. What happens if they don't perform well? I said, what do you mean? Tell them what happens in the NFL. When players don't perform well, when things don't go well, tell them what happens. I said, are you sure you want me to tell them? He said, yes. I said, okay. They fired a coach. So that's how he looked at me. I'm like, hey, you asked the question. That's the answer, right? I love inspirational speeches and messages, but I will tell you, even in my football playing days, I had a coach, and I'm not going to actually name that coach. I had a coach who, he'd come in at halftime, he'd scream and yell, he'd try to get us fired up. And it was great, but the problem was we went out into the second half, more excited, more fired up than ever, and just made the same mistakes with more intensity. Okay. So sometimes it's not motivation that you need, it's a change of direction. Logic produces order, but it's emotion, it's confidence, it's belief that injects that plan with energy. It's emotion that creates change. I want you to feel what it's like anytime you're about to take on something new. Why is that important? As great as your success currently is, it is now your comfort zone. That's not a bad thing, but it is now your comfort zone. And my question to you is, when's the last time you felt butterflies in your stomach? When's the last time you've been afraid? When's the last time you've been really nervous? When's the last time you had to really go, whew, okay, I'm gonna go for it. If it's been a long time, that means it's been far too long. The next opportunity, the next level of greatness you're gonna experience is when you personally are willing to also put yourself in position to be afraid, to be a little nervous. Man, that's exciting. Coming alive, not getting bored. And the reason why it's so significant, every single time you go to another level, look how many people are impacted when you do. It's not just about you. Leaders in this room, it's bigger than you. Look at the number of people you all touch. So every single time you move your own performance and become more effective, there are thousands of people positively impacted. So it's beyond just you. Coaches, leaders in this room, we need to create an environment on the teams that we lead that eliminate the fear of failure from the equation. There's a natural fear of failure. Nobody wants to just fail. But we need to remove that fear of failure because we're going to get more of the potential that's actually in the people that we lead. Ideas that have been swimming around people's minds, but they're scared to say it out loud. Chances, conversations, all kinds of things. We're sitting on it. Everything you all need to go to the next level, you already have. It's already in your hand. I promise you, there's a wealth of potential on the teams that you lead. And the key is, how do I tap into it? One of the ways you tap into it, you got to get fear of failure out of the way. What's a practical way of doing that for you as a leader? Will you please start sharing with your team your failures? The failures that you've overcome. See, the challenge sometimes is as we grow in leadership, guess what coaches do and leaders do too often? We get amnesia. We forget about our own mistakes. We forget about all the mess ups we had. And instead of using them as learning moments for our team members, we don't share them. So then they start playing not to make a mistake. When we need people making mistakes faster, we need to fail faster. We don't need to avoid failure. We need to be failing faster than we've ever failed before, because that's the new reality we're living in.
Everything I speak to from the stage, it's not just something I read. It's not just something I heard. There's credibility behind it because I've actually experienced what I'm talking about. Real life case studies, been there, done that, been through the conversations, been through the planning, been through the implementation, have endured all the things that go along with this message that's being shared. I don't like talking about something I heard. I prefer to speak about something I know. Now, the benefit of doing a lot of executive coaching is I've had the opportunity to walk alongside some fabulous leaders. And not just leaders for a couple of years. I've been working with some of these leaders for over 15 years. From when they went from a store manager or a district manager to now they're a CEO, and a couple of them have been CEO for some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. One is in charge of the whole global leadership for a Fortune 50 company. The opportunities to walk alongside these leaders on their journey is proof that many of these principles discussed about work. There's nothing new under the sun. But my passion and excitement about the information is I've seen them work in my own life. Therefore, anytime I speak to an audience, my goal always is to be as authentic as I possibly can. That means what I'm talking about, I've seen it work. If I haven't seen it work, it won't come out of my mouth.
Don't look anybody in the face. Kale starts taking off his watch. Guys are taking off their necklaces and putting it in their pockets. Because the four of us are walking down the stairs like this, not looking at anybody. There's barely anybody down there, but the four of us are standing right next to each other like this. Because we don't want anybody to rob us. One of my clients is the U.S. Army Rangers. And one of my dear friends is a gentleman who used to work with them, Special Forces, everything. His name was Bruce Barker. And the reason Bruce is such a dear friend of mine, he said something to me one time, I never forget. He says, Eric, every time I come home and wherever I go, people acknowledge me. They call me a hero. They say thank you for your service. I'm so appreciative of what you do. He says, it's amazing how that works. I said, yeah, because you are. He says, I hear you, man. He says, but you know what's amazing? I said, what's that? He says, I've allowed my greatness to get compartmentalized. It's amazing how great I am and how heroic I am on the battlefield. It's amazing how great I am with all these other areas, but when I go home in my own house, when I'm with those real, it's amazing how I can be a hero out there and such a coward in my own house. I want to thank every single one of you. I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for your level of success. But I also tell you, please, you've already done it, but please leave this place better than you found it. Pour everything that you have in you, please pour it into someone else so they can keep this thing going. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much for having me.